So hey guys, this is Mr. Heineman, and I'm going to show you how to do lesson 5 today in Word. We're going to start by going into Teams. So first thing you're going to need to do is go to office.com and log in. Remember, your login is your student ID number at stu.highlineschools.org, and then you sign in with the same password that you would use to sign into a desktop computer at school. Once you do that, you'll see this page with all of the different Office 365 apps. You can click on Teams to open up our team, and then once Teams opens, you will see, as soon as we get Teams open, you should see your team. It'll probably open your team. If you don't, you can click on our team, Microsoft Imagine Academy 2020, and then click on Class Notebook, and you'll see if you go, once it again loads, if you go to the content library, you'll see in Word, you will see the lessons, and here's lesson 5 down here. Okay, setting the page layout. So if we're going to open up any files, so like it asks us to open the proposal file, obviously we're not going to launch the Word app because most people don't have it on their computers. So we're going to have to do this through the Office 365 version. So I'm going to go ahead and click up here in Files, and we'll go to the lesson, class materials, Word files, and we'll go to lesson 5. So here are the lesson 5 files. Now we're going to open the proposal.docx, but I'm going to click the 3 dots here, and I'm going to mouse over Open, or click Open, and then click Open in Word Online. That way we can have it open, and then we can go back to Teams, go back to our class notebook, and have our instructions here. So I'm going to read a few of the instructions before I go back and do anything in the document. Okay, but the first thing I want to do, and I'm going to want you to do, is to make sure that you save a copy of this for yourself, because this copy is my copy, so I want you to have your own copy. So we're going to click File and Save As, and just click Save As here. Okay, we can choose a different folder by clicking Save in another folder, and you should see your file folders here. If you don't yet have a folder in your OneDrive, which is the Microsoft version of Google Drive, then you'll need to make one for Microsoft Imagine Academy, and then make another one for Word, and then one more for lesson 5. And I don't have one for lesson 5 yet, so I'm going to click New Folder, and I'm going to type lesson 5 and click Create. And now I have a lesson 5 folder, and click on the lesson 5 folder and click Save. Now that you have your own copy of it, you can start the editing process. So we're going to go back to Teams, and we're going to go ahead, and if you want to, you can always expand this so that you can see more. That might help. So click Expand tab, you can see it a little bit better. Okay, so it says here we're going to delete the extra blank lines above USA Health Resources, and then we're going to do some work with margins. So we're going to choose narrow margins, and then we're going to choose custom margins, and we're going to switch the custom margins to 1 inch for bottom left and right, and 2 inches at the top. So when it comes to margins, margins is the area around the outside of the document, so that is space that there won't be any text in. Okay, and you can use that to create some space in between pages, or create some space for when you print the document, so you have space around it. So if we go back to our document, we're going to delete all these lines up here. Now, in this version of Word, we don't have the ability to turn on the non-printing characters, so we just kind of have to gauge that we have them all. So we'll make sure that we're at the top of the document, and I'm just going to use the delete key, and the delete key will delete everything until I get to the top of until I get to where USA Health Resources is at the top. Okay. So then I'm going to click on Layout, Margins, and I'm going to select Narrow Margins first, and you'll see everything change. My margins have become narrow. If you need to, what you can do is we can go to View, and I think we can turn on, let's see, oh, maybe we can't. I thought we could turn on the a ruler, but it doesn't look like we can. At least it doesn't show anything. So I'm going to go ahead and just go back here to layout, and we'll work with margins. So, but we'll look pretty good here. You can see the margins have changed. What we can do is we can customize the margins, and we're going to make 2 inches at the top. So I'm going to type in 2 and hit Tab, and then 1 for the left, 1 for the bottom, 1 for the right. And all I did was hit the number I wanted and then just press Tab. And when I click OK, you'll see there's much more space at the top here. And then there's not as much space on each side or at the bottom. And we can see we don't have the white space showing between the 2 pages, but that's okay. We can we don't need to see that, but we know that we'll have margins at the bottom of 2 inches at each page, or 1 inch at each page, I should say. Okay, so let's go back and see what we're supposed to do next. Okay, it says, oh, to save this one as draft proposal. So each time we save, we're going to save it now under a different name. So we'll click Save As. We're going to save this as draft proposal. Okay, and we'll just save it in the same folder. Now the reason why I wanted you to save it the first time on your own drive is because Word automatically saves things. But to match up later when you have access to the solution files, when you see the solution files, you'll want to have the same named files open so that you can see. Okay, so this is draft proposal. Okay, so what we might do is we might actually read ahead and see what we're going to save the next one as, so that we have we can save it as that name to begin with. So the next part is about page orientation. We're talking about landscape versus portrait. Okay, this one has about 5 short steps. We're going to save this one as draft 1 proposal. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now instead. So we're going to do a save as, and I'm going to save it as draft 1 proposal. And again, that way, as I edit, it's going to save, and I won't wipe out what I had before. I'll just have the new version ready to go. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch to landscape. Okay, we're going to use the print preview to see let's just see what it looks like to make sure that landscape shows up, and then we can head back. So we're going to go ahead and click on layout, click on orientation, and choose landscape. And you should see it in your screen. It'll change. If I go to file and I click on print, you can click on print to have it pop up so that you can see, and you can see it's in landscape. You can click on the drop down arrow here, and it should say, let's see, no, it doesn't say. That's all right. But we can see, you can see this obviously looks like landscape. So we're going to go ahead and click cancel, go ahead and close that out. So, and we're all done here, so we're saved. So we're going to move on to the next part. Okay, talking about paper size. This one is going to end up being called draft 2 proposal. So I'm going to again change the name. So we're going to go save as draft 2 proposal. Click save. And then our instructions are we're going to switch back to portrait. We're going to choose a different size. We're going to choose the legal size, and we'll see if we can do that in the in this version of Word. And then we'll again try print, and then switch back to letters. Okay, so we'll go back to here, click Layout. We're going to switch back to Portrait, and then we're going to pick Legal from the size drop-down. Okay, now you should see that that changes what it looks like on your screen and where the pages are. See, now there's a whole bunch more on page 1. In fact, it looks like everything's on page 1 now. So if I go File, Print, we just click Print. Okay, and it's going to open up in this print dialog. We should see that it looks a lot different than it was. Okay, if we choose legal size here, then we can see that what it's going to look like actually on our legal size paper. So, okay, but we're going to go and click Cancel, close out. I'm going to go ahead and switch back to letter size, and then it'll save automatically. Then we can move on to the next part. So when we go back to Teams, right, we're at the end of this part. I'm going to click on my arrow here, and we're going to go ahead and move down to the next one, which is working with breaks. Breaks are places in the document where we either create a new section, is what it's called, or we create a whole new page. So there's multiple kinds of breaks. There are page breaks, or column breaks, which manually inserts a break between two columns, and then text wrapping tells you how if you're going to insert objects into a document, it'll tell you how the text is going to work around that, whether it's going to be wrapped around it tight, or if it's going to be in a square, or if it's going to look like the item is in the text, in line with all the text. So starting with manual page breaks, we had a lot of steps here, so we're going to kind of break these up as we go. This one, we're still in the same document, so again, we won't be able to see the non-printing characters, but it also doesn't look like, let's see, okay, so we are going to, at some point, we're saving it as draft 3 proposal, and then and this part, so down here I see at the bottom here, it says keep the document open without saving the changes made in the last 3 steps, and we can't do that in Word Online. So we might just wait on those last 3 steps to see where we're going with it later on. Okay, so I'm going to go back up here though, and we're going to first go back and save this as draft 3 proposal, just to play it safe. Save as draft 3 proposal. Click save. And now we have a different copy of it called draft 3 proposal. Now we have all this space up here. This is the first steps it's going to have you do, is remove all of those blank lines. And then we're going to make sure our insertion point is right before the P in proposal description. Okay. So then we'll add a page break right before that. So, and again, we won't be able to see the non-printing characters, but basically I'm going to delete all this stuff here until we're right there. Then I'm going to insert, and we can click on page break here. Okay. And you can see a page break is inserted. If we were to look at this and actually see this in printing, we could click File and then Print. And if we do that, we can see how it's going to print actually. Here it comes. There it is. Oops, except we need to change this to letter again. There we go. So you can see the next page, the second page, starts with proposal description, which is where we were. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of that again and close there. Okay. I'm not sure if we'll be able to do sections or not, but we'll see. So we're supposed to add a page break a different way. I don't see another breaks here, so I'm going to guess that we can just add the page breaks. It doesn't appear that we're going to be able to add any other breaks based on what I see. So so we're just not going to kind of worry about some of these things. Okay. That may mean we're going to be through this a little bit quicker than I had planned, and that's okay. So back to Teams real quick. Yeah, you can add page breaks in Microsoft 2019 in multiple ways. In Word 2019, so you can go. There's a breaks menu. There's a specific page break button. You can also use Control Enter. So we're going to just add the page breaks where they want us to add them. So we need to add one before O in option 2 and the O in option 3. And actually the O in option 1 as well. So we're basically going to add page break here. So we can go to Insert Page Break. We can add a page break here. If you press and hold Control and hit Enter, that'll add a page break as well. So we'll do the same thing. So Control and Enter for adding a page break. It's the shortcut for adding a page break. Control Enter. Okay. So again, if we go to our print, we can see in the print preview here. So this is what it'll look like. Proposal description on one page, option 1 on one page, option 2 on one page, option 3 on another page. Okay. So with the page breaks, we're not going to bother with the last part of this, because the last part of this we're supposed to do without saving, and of course we can't do that. And it's also like it's going to go on to section breaks, and again, I don't believe we can do section breaks in the online version, and that's just kind of how it is. So but basically, if you were to do section breaks, you could then, instead of having necessarily all these on different pages, you could format them differently depending on what you want it to do. Okay. But again, I don't think that we're going to be able to do that. It looks like just page breaks to do this. So I'm going to kind of leave it there. We're going to skip this part in the section breaks. Just know that section breaks are something you would see in the Word app. And in the Word app, you could use them instead of page breaks. And it's a little bit different semantically, but it's pretty much the same thing. Because then you can, it's easier then to change how you format each section, because you can format each section differently rather than just the different pages. Page breaks don't do that, but section breaks do. Okay, so I'm gonna skip all that stuff in terms of doing it, because there's not really much I can do in the online version. So we're gonna go ahead and go down here, and I'll talk about this. The section breaks can be used to change the type of formatting for columns, footnotes, headers and footers, line numbering, margins, page borders, page numbering, page size, page source, and vertical alignment. So all of this stuff, that's why you would add sections as opposed to just page breaks, because then you could control all of these things. And if you delete a section break, you're going to remove all the formatting in that section. Okay. So one of the things that can happen is you have the widow and orphan issues. A widow is a line that's on the next page. It's the last line of a paragraph that'll be shown on the next page rather than on the current page. And then orphan is the kind of the opposite of that. It's the first line of a paragraph on the previous page and the rest of the paragraph on the second page. I don't believe that there's widow and orphan control in the online version. But we can check and see. So I'm going to we'll go to home and we'll look at that's font options. Let's see what other options we have. Let's go to paragraph options. And yeah, it doesn't look like we have widow or orphan control here. So what we can do with that, we can adjust that with margins, or you can simply move things to the next page. It's sometimes a little bit easier to do that. And just add a page break before, and that way then you can just have everything together on one page. So again, that's kind of another thing that because of our situation, we're just going to go ahead and skip, and we'll move on to the next part. So I'm going to click open here, and setting up columns. I think columns is another thing that might not appear in the online version here, but we can still check it out. Look in paragraph options. Yeah, it looks like there's nothing really for columns here. One way we can get around that, at least in the online version, would be to create a table instead. So a table could work like columns, essentially. You could set up like a 3x1 table if you wanted 3 columns, and put your text in that table. So that's one way to get around it, at least in the online version of Word. So in this case, they were doing 2 columns. This is actually in a new document, so we can open up a new document and I can show you that one. So of course I gotta shrink this down and open up files from the class materials, from Word files, from lesson 5. We're going to open up checking. Again, we're going to open this one in the Word Online. Okay, and basically the idea is that we would you would have kind of each one of these in their own column, right? So if we go back here, back to our class notebook, and we'll open up our instructions one more time. There we are. So in this case, it starts by creating columns. It has us first change the left and right margins to 1 inch. We can do that. So first thing, of course, I'm going to do is let's save this on our own drive. So make sure we click on our own folder. There's Microsoft Imagine Academy, Word, lesson 5, and then we can save it here. And so after the personal checking choices, we could get here, or we could put it here. And it would have us normally, we're going to add 2 columns, right? Some of the basic things are to add 1, 2, or 3 columns. You can add as many columns as you want, pretty much. There's the basic options are 1, 2, 3. There's a left and a right, where there's a smaller column on the left and a larger column on the right, and then right, of course, switches that. And so we can do 1, 2, or 3 columns. We can also increase the number of columns here if we want. But again, that's not something we can necessarily do in this one. But what we can do instead is to make this appear like this using a table instead. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to go to Insert. Actually, I'm going to go to Layout. Make the margins 1-inch margins. So I'm going to use the normal. Actually, we're going to use, yeah, we'll go to Custom Margins. We're going to make the left and right margins 1 inch as well, which is basically the normal. Okay, we're going to switch the orientation to Landscape. And then you'll notice we have 4 different options, but we only are going to end up having 3 columns. Okay. Oops. So eventually the document is going to look similar to this. So to put 3 columns in there, what we can do is we can insert a table that will be 3 columns wide. So if I insert that, I can then copy anything that I have. So I can take this, I can either Control X to cut, and then Control V to paste. And I could do the same thing with all 3 of these. And that would give us the Control C, oops, not the Control X though. Control X, Control V, and then Control X and Control V. Okay. Now, we wouldn't want these, the lines to be there, right, for the table. So if we go to Table, and we can choose one of their basic table options here, or we can choose from some other style options if we wanted not anything we were really looking for. Okay, what we can do instead, maybe we can't get rid of the, I was figuring we could get rid of the lines, but it doesn't look like, well, maybe we can, like this. There we go. So we can click that option here, Plain Table 4, and that gets rid of our lines. So now it looks like we have things in a few options. Now if we wanted to make this one kind of fall in the same line, what we could do is click at the bottom here at the end of the third row, or the third column, hit Tab. That actually adds a new row, and then I could do Control X to cut, and a Control V to paste. Okay, now if I go up and I click on Table and I click on my, you can see that there's actually 2 rows now instead of 1 row. So if I click on Table 4, it'll get rid of the lines for me, so it looks like I'm using columns. So that's a way to get around it if you actually want something like that in the online version. Okay. With the text boxes, again, the text boxes are going to be something that you can do in 2019 that you won't be able to do online. You can really only add text to the document itself online. But in the 2019 version, you will be able to add a text box, and you'll actually be able to link the 2 text boxes, and that's what it goes through. So you can link 2 text boxes so that you can have the information flow right from one to the other. So hopefully this was helpful for you in completing what you can complete, at least in terms of what we're doing. So yeah, good luck, and if you have any questions, you can always email. All right, I'll see you guys later.